Hello, everyone, and welcome to the LCS Academy 2022 Spring Split. I'm Mazel, and we are joined today by Joshi. And it feels like, and I think it is the first time, Rafa
That's
coming
right.
to join the French mess over here, whatever we got going on. But we have some
French
fun
mess.
stuff lined
Come
up
on,
today.
man. You don't gotta bag on yourself like that. You've been doing good.
I mean,
appreciate you.
Whatever it is. But we do have a very hype first match, and I am so excited to watch you guys cast this one. It is Cloud9 taking on 100 Thieves, and it's going to be a bang. We got to start off with this Cloud9 roster, though, because although it isn't the main starting roster, we do have some subs in there, having some good things to speak on them in the first 3 days of play.
Yeah, I still feel like we got to see a lot of good performance coming out from Copy yesterday, especially on the Akali in their first game, where he was able to find a lot of flanks and really just kind of upset the balance of power. Unfortunately, they weren't able to pull out a win in that one. It was a decisive victory, but we still see some gleaming hopes coming out for Cloud9, especially based on the veterans that we've had on this team for such a long time.
Exactly that, and I believe we'll have the roster coming up here in just a moment for you to kind of show those names of who we're talking about for Cloud9 Academy. And if we don't, we're just going to go look at some clips from them yesterday so that we can get their names up on the screen.
The other thing, too, I want to kind of jump in about Cloud9 Academy, just to remind everyone of fans that at home, and if they've been following, we have basically 3 subs coming in for this Academy roster, while most of the other starting Academy players are either playing for the LCS roster in lock-in, or they're still getting visa issues starting out. So, if the results are not necessarily where fans want them, just be reminded they're working with what they got here. And
this is not their final form.
They will get there. They are scaling.
They're scaling. That's it. Exactly. But you can talk a little bit about the standouts, right? And especially in Copy and King the carries. And I believe we're going to have some clips to show of some game footage that we have of them and be able to show off a little bit of those bright sides that we've seen from Cloud9. And just kind of talking about that a little bit, because yes, it has been a rough start, but you still have that light at the end of the tunnel. You still have that growth factor, the anime arc, if you will, that you guys are talking about.
And I still gotta say, I'm still excited to watch the Lawrence duo, right? You got Lawrence up in the top lane, and then you got Lawrence Frost Forest in the jungle, right? So you have a lot of opportunities for these guys to still have a lot of success, and I have to imagine that the experience has been really growth driven for them, right? They know that they're going to just be here for a little while, and so they're trying to get as much out of this as they can, just learning from all the Cloud9 coaches and having an opportunity to continue getting better. So hopefully we'll get to see them in an academy roster at some point in the future in a more permanent role.
Indeed. So I guess we don't have clips to play for C9, so we're going to go ahead and go to 100 Thieves, which we don't also have the rosters up. So we'll just talk through it a little bit. It's some dominant stuff we saw yesterday as well of that
100
team.
Thieves is pretty damn exciting. I mean, we already knew that 100 Thieves Academy was going to be coming in as one of our favorite Academy squads. Despite some changes, you still have one of the favorite, or kind of our players to watch out for this entire Academy split after they made their Academy debut last year. Kenvi the jungler, and this guy gets to play anything he wants at this point whenever they feel the skill disparity is just that large. If you didn't get a chance to see their games yesterday, this isn't one of them, as this is Golden Guardians Academy from last week, but, yesterday when they played against TSM Academy, Kenvi straight away from the Viego and the Zinzao and the J4, he's playing things like Kindred and Nidalee again, which are some of his specialties, but whenever I see that on my screen, that usually says to me, I don't need to play the meta stuff. I'm just going to dominate the other jungler by playing, some flashy mechanical skill type of jungglers.
And you would know about that too, because I don't know if you guys know in the chat, but Rafa here is a Nidalee specialist. He tried to beg me to play this in the rec league that we played all season long, and I never gave him the chance to do it. But hey, it looks like 100 Thieves are a little bit more willing to let Kenvi do whatever he wants than this guy.
This local Nidalee player over here. Gosh, get that out of here. But hey, I'm excited. I want to see Kenvi on that Nidalee again. I want to see what happens. Where's the Redacted? Where's the combo? But we got to talk about these couple players that I think we really want to focus on actually. Looks like we're gonna go back to the C9 stuff. Okay, so we got replays for the Cloud9 roster.
Yeah, this is a little bit of an opportunity to see how they were playing up against TSM. And the big thing that we have to note about it, and we're going to talk about this player a little bit more in a second, but Keetong, typically more of an enchanter player. He's been consistently getting multiple bans targeted towards him in the bottom side, but now we're actually starting to see that he's playing a little bit of Leona, one of the strongest engaged supports on the patch. And having that kind of success with something that is not typically in his wheelhouse is very exciting for the future of the player.
It is. I'm just super excited to see him transitioning to other stuff, right? But still seeing that power of mid enchanters come through in the bottom lane, and that's what we got to talk about. Keetong and Sword. Keetong being a main ban focus for opposing teams against this squad, and on the other side, Sword not being too shabby himself.
Sword is really making a name for himself as he's starting to make the swap. As for those that were watching Academy last year know that he was the mid laner for TSM Academy, but then he started splitting time with Takeover, as Sword was more of a supportive style, which, kind of helping fill this role swap identity really well. Whereas Takeover was much more aggressive and played some harder carry champions in that mid lane. Sword now coming into the support role. He's not supposed to be necessarily the starting support for 100 Thieves Academy. He's actually the starting support for 100 Thieves Next, which is their amateur squad. But Sword has stepped up because that during this time, Busio is unavailable to play. He's focusing on his studies, making sure that he is able to place out of his school exams so that he can commit and be without any distractions and can focus fully on Academy once he's ready. But Sword stepping up, it's been a double-edged experience, but when he lands the engages, they are sick as hell to watch on screen.
I can't walk away from the double-edged sword on whatever you just did. Is that a pun? Is that a reference? I don't even know anymore. You broke me, Rafa.
You gotta get with the times, Roselle. This has been a thing we've been talking about all over. Sometimes you gotta sheath it. Sometimes you gotta draw it. Maybe that's something you can draw for us a little bit later on too, right? But it's one of those things where Sword has been looking really good a lot of the time, and he's somebody that we had mixed expectations for, right? People weren't really sure if his transition from the mid lane to support was going to go well. We have some obvious standouts like who transitioned from the mid lane to the support a long time ago, but we've seen a lot of mid laners, like Busio is another one that you've already named, is trying to make their transition and has been seeing a decent amount of success. So as Sword continues to grow, we're expecting to see him continue to get better as one of the kind of young prodigies that we were initially expecting to have a lot of success when they initially joined TSMA.
Yeah, it's an exciting time for sure for both these players, but it's also exciting to see them push and pull in their lanes, right? And especially watching a lot of the play through bot lane, but seeing that transition to a lot more roam timers, trying to get things going with the entire squad is so interesting to me. And that's what I'm hoping we see a little bit more of today. I love me a good old-fashioned 2v2 brawl in the bot lane as much as anybody else, but I like to see the macro coming out from these teams. And we have seen a decent showing from a lot of the squads in Academy for that.
100 Thieves is one, when it comes to their macro play, it's not necessarily as apparent as someone like Immortals Academy or even CLG Academy, who are making clear, distinct moves to support a certain side of the map. But 100 Thieves Academy has really been kind of pivoting around Wixie and Sword's ability to coordinate the reset timers. I know especially they exploited this against TSM Academy yesterday. A lot of the times as soon as they noticed whenever Instinct and Yurson were going for a reset, Wixie and Sword were able to delay that timer really quick and make sure that they got Kenvi coming over to the bottom lane. And they secured a lot of free dragons without TSM Academy even being able to contest or really having an answer on the other side of the map. So 100 Thieves, even though the macro isn't as flashy or as apparent as some of the other teams, it's still there. And 100 Thieves Academy has always been a team that is willing to take leads and just slowly stranglehold the other team, as we saw from their dominance in last year's split.
Yeah, that's not the only way they can play, right? They can also play a much faster style, as we saw in the second game yesterday. The first one was a much slower macro-oriented game where they had to get multiple Barons and use the Realm Orb to great effect. But the other one, starting off with 3 kills in a 3v3 on the top side with the mid, jungle, and top lane, gave Gamsu and Kenvi in particular the tools needed to just run away with the game. And while the first one was fairly close and a little bit slower, the second one was not, because Kenvi absolutely popped off on the
Yeah.
Nidalee. And just being able to see that this team has a lot of styles that they can go with is really impressive for a roster that we knew was going to be strong, but we didn't quite realize how strong they were going to
I'm
be.
just so sold on that Baron play with the play from Jimmy and TP again from the bot. Like that, it's just so awesome. And to see that kind of stuff unfold. Obviously want to hear the communications on the team, see who's shot calling, see what that decision-making process is like, but just to see it unfold on the Rift is always fun. And also for both these teams, right, looking at this jungle matchup, yes, we have Frost Forest coming in for as a sub for Cloud9, but
Mark's favorite.
yes, the Utah engage is there, but the fact of the matter is it's a tall task for old Frost Forest over there, and I'm excited to see that kind of aggression from Frost Forest that it is, I feel like, his namesake, right? And see if that comes out against Kenvi. See if that is available to him as a playstyle against this stacked squad.
You know, I did get a chance to catch up with Frost Forest last week before their debut on Cloud9 Academy's first week of games. And one of the things that he talked about with this squad is that even though that they haven't had that much time practicing together, and this is a squad that is just mainly made up of trying to fit in some subs until the main starting players come together, something that he really enjoys is that he thinks that everyone is individually talented enough that as long as the early game doesn't go completely to the wayside, they still have ways to come back in the game, because they've been big fans of how their drafts have gone, and they're able to kind of play towards the later stages of the game. And I think Cloud9 Academy just have to remember that, you know what, if you have these strong win conditions for oriented towards the second half of the game, then just need to calm down in the early game, right? And, if be able to part with resources that are, what's the term, Joshi, you always talk about? Unnecessary structures, right?
Oh. That is an old meme at this point. But yeah, you got to make sure that you're going to be giving up what you need to. Give up no more than you have to, but just understanding your ability to back off and just say, like, hey, there are 3 people. I'm going to get dove. I cannot afford to pick up this wave, because if I die, I'm going to lose the wave anyway. And if I die, then I give over the extra 300 gold and experience. So you always need to be very careful about what you're going to be doing. And that's something that has kind of bitten Cloud9 a little bit, as you said. They're not always having the cleanest early games, because I've said this before about some other players. It kind of feels like they have a bit of a chip on their shoulder, where they're coming in and saying, we need to carry this game, we need to look good on stage. And I had a conversation with our producer Kelsey Moser not that long ago, and we were having a discussion. It's like, yes, stage games are nice, they make you less nervous for future stage games and allows you to perform, but realistically, use this time to practice.
Yeah.
Use this time to understand what you need to do in order to learn to get even better than you already are.
It's always an interesting conversation. Self-improvement is so important, especially in League of Legends, and realizing the things that work for your self-improvement. Something that has been pretty improved, I feel like, is Copy in the mid lane, by the way. Beautiful transition. I'm just going to give myself a pat on the back there. But Copy versus Jimmy N is also an interesting matchup here. As the two come together, right? We were seeing some decent play, some decent team play from Jimmy N as well, but Copy has also been one of these standouts for this Cloud9 roster.
Copy was someone that is staring at his old organization as well, right? I mean, he's been on Cloud9 for the past year, but before that, he was one of the original 5 members of that debut 100 Thieves Next class back in 2020, alongside Tenacity, Kenvi, Otto, and Poom. And then, of course, they brought in Jan once Auto role swap to support. Poom graduated towards the academy towards that summer split. But Copy was was known as a facilitator on that role, and wasn't necessarily a primary carry, as it was all about Kenvi and Tenacity just running over the top side of the map, and Copy playing things like the Twisted Fate or the Rise or even the Set back then to just really give the tools necessary over to Kenvi. But on a roster that is running more subs, and Cloud9, for the most part, trying to facilitate Copy in this role of being more of a hard carry, Copy is stepping up, and he wants to prove that he is one of the top mids now that he's coming in with a full year of Academy under his belt.
And the did get the word that we are ready to send it over to draft number 1 for this first game. So, fellas, take it away.
Woo!
Thanks, Mazel.
That's what we're here for.
Draft should be starting now, and just making sure that all the players have all their peripherals working correctly. You know, you definitely don't want to load into a game and suddenly the mouse disconnects, you know.
You would know a lot about that, wouldn't you?
that almost...
The number of games we load into, Mark, where like halfway through you're like, guys, my mouse just died. We're just like, oh, well, have you considered just plugging it in? And it's like, not, gotta go get new batteries. We're gonna be okay.
I like
but
my wireless
let's not
mouse,
beat around the
man.
bush too much.
I don't
here,
like
Mark.
living... Yeah, I don't like living by wires.
There ain't no strings on Mark. That's all I'm hearing. But let's not beat around this too much, Mark. This is probably not going to be a particularly close match.
Yeah.
100 Thieves has been looking super, super strong, and as much as we enjoy seeing, you know, some of the Cloud9 amateur boys plus Heatong coming in to substitute for the Cloud9 Academy roster, they've been struggling thus far. And, you know, here on Academy, we've been having a lot of discussions about how results are nice, right? You always like seeing your favorite players succeed, but again, we want to see these players improve. I can't imagine for anybody on this roster, Academy is their end goal. And while, you know, winning proves that you are closer to that goal than you were before, it doesn't necessarily mean
The
you're
other
done
thing,
with the
too,
journey.
for Cloud9 Academy is that it's hard to set expectations of like, okay, we want this team to be super good when, you know, the full pieces aren't there quite yet. And so for 100 Thieves Academy, I think when you look at this squad and what their expectations are, of yes, this is a matchup that you are very favored in, but I also want to see if 100 Thieves Academy are willing to challenge themselves and see, okay, it's not just about playing a comfort style and then just getting this win out of the books. You know, that Academy should be about, you know, limit testing and exploring different compositions and trying new styles and how to, you know, push yourselves as a team and being able to put yourselves in situations that you normally don't get to practice, so that when it comes to, you know, the playoff stage later down the line, or eventually the Proving Grounds tournament by the end of the spring, if you can figure out those situations and how the... Oh my goodness,
Whoa.
we're halfway done. All
Halfway
right.
done.
Well,
all right.
when you get, by the time you get to those situations and Proving Grounds, you'll at least have practiced those out. But we've got Copy thinking about their last pick for Cloud9 Academy already. Twisted Fate, Jinx, and Nautilus being set up here. So
Ooh.
Copy's going to be on a facilitator this time around, not necessarily a primary carry, but if Cloud9 Academy are able to find tools to really pivot towards the bottom side of the map, set up King for success, that's a winning strategy right there.
Oh no, this is already looking really scary for Cloud9,
Oh,
right?
boy.
You already have the Renekton being blinded for Gamsu. You have the Rise in the mid lane for Jimyeon, and these both these characters have one important thing in common, Mark, and that is point-and-click crowd control set up for Nidalee. It's gonna be super, super difficult for you know, Kenvi to be missing any of these spears, and it's going to set up for some very easy ganks. So if 100 Thieves get ahead on some of these early ganks, I would not be surprised if we saw a very similar speed run to this game as we saw
It's a
in
high
Game
risk,
2
high
versus TSM
reward
yesterday.
style, right? Whenever you're playing Nidalee, because as soon as you start falling behind or these ganks don't work out in your favor, then the utility of some of the other junglers like Jarvan and Xin Zhao, one of them being taken away, yes, they're junglers that, you know, their combat power falls off, but what they bring to a team fight will always be useful, right? Whether it's the Crescent Guard being able to split up multiple people and provide disengage, or just being able to find ways of knocking a carry into your own team, or of course the Cataclysm locks down a lot of these marksmen that don't have escapes outside of Flash, right? Whereas Nidalee, if your damage falls off, if you're behind the curve, your spears ain't hidden, then the best thing that you can do is provide vision with bushwhack traps and maybe give your AD carry attack speed steroid. That's it.
Yep. I mean, I remember the days when Nunu was the best support in the game because you just walked around and gave your AD carry 2 recurpos, so... It's not a totally useless way to play, but you do have to have somebody that can actually hold those buffs for you. But as we start looking towards the second half of the draft, I always like to take stock. What do these teams have? And apparently
Unlucky.
It's a draft issue.
They looked at the bands and like, wait a minute. What
Wait a
happened
second.
here?
It's not quite what we're looking at. So one of one of the things that I was looking forward to potentially seeing a bit more is we talked about this yesterday a little bit. Cubby and I had our brief things. We were talking about what AD carries and what supports we thought were going to be good. Cubby spent a lot of time talking about Janna, and I'm a little bit surprised that it hasn't been something that we've seen Keysong pull out because it feels like something that would be very much in his repertoire. We saw the Lulu, we saw the Yumi, we saw the Karma all banned, and Janna is potentially the best of them, right? Potentially the best
Yeah.
enchanter on the patch, and so strong that players like Lorlo are playing at top lane with Smite.
Now that part, I knew he was playing top lane. I didn't know
That
about the
part, like,
smite part. No,
You didn't know about the
I don't know
smite?
about the
Oh,
smite
boy.
tech, but you know that's interesting to me. I know I've definitely talked to some teams, and you know people said with a straight face, dude, Janna's a 5-way flex, and I'm like, but how are you supposed to jungle with it? And now I'm hearing like top lane smite, so I really don't know what's going on with this Janna tech.
Yeah,
But I do want to bounce back actually
There's
towards this point about Keetong not playing Janna. I think it just says a lot about what Cloud9 Academy as a team with these subs here want out of the support role, and that if they want him on primary engage duty, then that means that they are opening up Frostforce and Lawrence, who normally would be able to fulfill that maybe with something like a Gragas top or some type of tank engage top, or Frostforce even playing something that gives engage power. They want to relieve that responsibility towards the support role, so then Frostforce and Lawrence can pick something that maybe is more damage oriented.
Yeah. And I feel like, you can correct me here a little bit, Mark, but I feel like one of the issues why this Cloud9 roster has not been seeing as much success is the biggest playmaker we have on the roster is Frostforce, and I don't typically think of him as somebody who's always got the obvious engage buttons, right? Even with the Xin Zhao or the Lee Sin that we oftentimes imagine him playing, these don't have like okay, now we're all going, Malphite all, this fight is starting right now, whether you like it or not. They're very go in, and you try and stick to them, you try and get stuck in, but that's a slower process. And the rest of the team doesn't obviously have that person who is going to be that go button, and I feel like they're trying to plug that hole right now.
When I was talking with Frostforce about, like, hey, are we going to see the Utah engage, anytime soon? And which champions that would be. And he's like, oh, well, this meta's kind of difficult. Obviously, like, Jarvan's a pretty good one, because you just dunk someone with Cataclysm, right? But, so in the past, normally I would see things like the Nocturne from Frostforce, right? I mean, that's a pretty universal go button. You're turning out all the lights. You're sailing in. So, but we haven't really seen Nocturne being played that much as he used to be in the past, as he used to be a powerful 3-way flex on the entire top side of the map. Now, that's kind of fallen by the wayside. I'm curious to see, though, if he'll lean towards the Diana, because the Diana kind of fits into what Frostforce usually has done in the past, where he likes to have engaged tools, but also be a damage dealer or some type of carry. And Diana kind of fills both of those. It does take a while to really come online, as your skirmishing power isn't as powerful as Xin Zhao, Lee Sin, Jarvan in the first few levels, but once you get access to the Moonfall, then you can start making some huge plays. And just want to give an update to everyone at home. There was a player bug issue with their client, which is why we got out of the team draft a little bit ago. So we're just making sure that those players have the time to be able to get through the bug, and we should be back into draft as soon as possible.
Hopefully, it will be relatively soon that we are going to do that. But yeah, I agree. I think the Diana is something that's been a little bit underexplored, not just at the academy level, but kind of in pro across the board. It's not the strongest jungler on the patch, but I definitely think it clearly has a niche, and we've seen it paired with things like the Yasuo and the Yone. And as you said, I feel like Frostforce is a good player to potentially bring it out. Now, is it appropriate in this game? Perhaps not the best thing you could be grabbing, right? You don't necessarily have an obvious wombo combo that you're going to be pairing it up with, and so we need to find something else that is going to be pairing with that Moonfall for them to have the same kind of success. And again, with the Twisted Fate already locked in for copy, you're going to be missing a major source of some of those big AoEs that will oftentimes be the core linchpin to a Diana composition.
One thing that I also want to look at for the side of 100 Thieves is how Wixie and Sword are going to be complementing the rest of this Rise, Nidalee, Renekton composition that has already been drafted by 100 Thieves. Because right now, you already know that 100 Thieves want to live on the top side of the map if there's no similar point-and-click CC that Sword or Wixie is able to set up for those Nidalee spears. Or if there's not as strong of a priority lane for the bottom side of the map. Kenvi just wants to be able to lean onto the priority of Gamsu's Renekton as well as Jimian's Rise, invade the top side of the jungle, and this does mean that Frost Force is going to have to look towards a jungle pick that can be a little bit more self-sufficient if Lawrence and Copy cannot, be able to match the priority from Gamsu and Jimian in those solo lanes and be able to collapse to make sure that Frost Force doesn't get completely shut out of the game.
That's going to be one of the big things, as we already discussed. Cloud9, you talked with Frost Forest, got to make sure that we don't get shut out early on, and this is, again, a situation that could be very dangerous for them for getting shut out, basically at the beginning of the game. So, as we start going through the rest of the draft, we are back to where we were previously. We got a couple more bans in order to catch up. But Wixie and Sword, like you said, they need to come up with something that is going to be, at the very least, self-sufficient. And so, the first thing that comes to mind for me, we've seen Wixie have some great Ezreal games so far this season. And yesterday, in their wins, I don't want to say they underperformed, but they just were kind of quiet, right? There was not a whole lot coming through, but oh yes! The Senna locked in already for Wixie. Great supportive style pick, and this champion, guys, absolutely bonkers disgusting on 12.2. If you aren't already playing it in your solo queue games, you should seriously
But what if I
consider
play jungle only?
You should consider it and then promptly discard it.
Okay. I had to think it over.
Okay.
Remember, small play-by-play brain,
turning.
So, if I was an AD main, though, I would definitely consider it. However, if your name is Kangas, I would not consider playing that support. I'm just kidding.
Whoa. Frost Forest, are you listening to us?
Now, one thing, though, if this gets locked in, this is a lot of magic damage on the top side of the map between Twist of Fate, Gwen, and Diana. And so this makes more sense.
Okay.
It needs your champion to pilot and execute. You have powerful skirmishing power in the early game, but man, talk about safety and an unkillable bot lane duo. Senna Tom Kench. Are we back in Season 10, Josh? This feels like a throwback.
It feels like a throwback indeed, and we are having to note that, remember, Tom Kent doesn't get access to his safety at level 2 or level 3 anymore. He's consistently getting it at level 6 at this point, so there is a little bit more opportunity to actually try and attack the 100 Thieves bot lane in the first couple of levels, but that's not a particularly large window. So, as we look across the board, there are a couple things that we are going to have to pay attention to, right? Lawrence, I still want to call him Speedo. Lawrence up in the top lane is still going to have a situation where if he throws down his Hallowed Mist at the correct time, he is going to be able to dodge out from the spear because Nidalee is going to be outside of it. So it is going to be a situation where even if the stun goes through, it's not always the easiest thing in the world to try and actually gank this Gwen. So I really like the fact that they are coming up with a strong top lane that they might be able to play around, and if Lawrence can have some success there, might be a way for them to get back into the game.
Couple things there for 100 Thieves Academy as well is obviously the fear of the top side of the map for Cloud9 Academy. How well Gamsu and Jimian are going to be able to support Kenvi in these invades and the topside skirmishes. But once again, Cloud9 Academy, a lot of facilitating tools between Frost Force and Copy, and it's to set up King for success. But also we've been noticing that Cloud9 have been putting resources into Lawrence or attempting to try and set him up for success as well. And, to be honest, when we looked at Lawrence back then, as you called him, Speedo, in the Cloud9 Amateur days, we didn't really consider Speedo as one of the stronger top laners in among the competition during the 2021 overall split, both in Proving Grounds as well as just the normal amateur circuit leading up to the tournament. But this says to me, yeah. But this says to me that Cloud9 Academy, in the scrims that they've been having, they believe that Lawrence, has the ability to take on top laners in this matchup. They want to set him up for success. and this will alleviate kind of the carry responsibility, so that it's not just a one carry composition, and you have Lawrence that can potentially apply some split push pressure, because I think if you get late enough in the game, she should be able to match either the Renekton or the Ryze in the side lane.
The Rise is a little bit hairier, right? It becomes a bit of a range issue for you to actually stick to them. And we know that Jimian has already played a bit more of a tanky style of Rise, where even if you're not going to be doing the same kind of burst damage against the squishy members of Cloud9, it does allow you to stay alive for a lot longer against something like the Gwen. I think the big thing that we should be looking to identify with Lawrence up here in the top lane is, as you initially said, he really struggled early on in the Cloud9 amateur days, and eventually, we said that, like, this guy kind of started off as a liability in the beginning of the season, but by the end of it, he was starting to look pretty decent. And now as he transitions here, I think he should have an opportunity to try and prove that he belongs in Academy, but this is a tough test for him, Mark. Gamsu has been looking absolutely stellar so far in all of the wins that 100 Thieves have had.
Don't get me wrong, Josh, I always love seeing a Nidalee on my screen, but
there it is.
Nidalee can be punished. I just want everyone to know that like, the reason why Kenvi is playing it is because 100 Thieves Academy are explicitly doing a game plan to play around facilitating Kenvi's success. Oh no, Lawrence.
Oh god.
Lawrence is a little far away from his turret right now, and he doesn't have
done.
Ghost, doesn't have Flash, just Teleport Ignite. So this is going to be a lot of damage, and because minions are now spawning, Lawrence is going to be a little late to that first minion wave.
Okay, that could have been a lot worse than it ended up being. Gamsu choosing to start with the Q in order to make sure his laning phase will be alright later, but Lawrence had no flash in that. I'm a little bit surprised that we didn't start with his stun. But for now, as everybody goes back, we have to note that Kenvi is going to be starting this on Vision for his red buff, as well as doing it without a leash. And similar thing, Frost Forest is going to be doing his blue buff without a leash as well. And so both sides of the jungle matchup should have a pretty good idea on where the opposing jungle is. And it does mean they are very likely to be meeting up in the bottom river, potentially looking for a level 3 gank.
A little bit of a quiet early game at the moment within the 2 minutes. No spicy level 2 gank shenanigans, Not yet.
Not yet.
Kenvi, though, Frost Force was able to get a ward down onto Kenvi's red buff while Kenvi and Gamsu were pushing Lawrence out of the initial 1 minute play. But Kenvi jumping immediately from red buff is now on the bottom side of the map and could go for a full clear of this jungle. It's actually just going to be a 3-camp clear, and he'll be level 3. With Wixie and Sword pushed under tower like this, I wonder if Sword and Wixie can coordinate a CC crowd control play onto either King or Keektom before Frost Force gets a chance to respond. That could be either some summoner's build.
Yeah. So I don't know if you saw this, Mark, but at the very beginning, we saw that there was a question mark ping towards the Krugs on the top side of Kenvi. And typically when you see those pings, they mean that the jungler is saying, I think this person is here. And that means that they potentially have an incorrect read on where Kenvi's path is currently taking him. And that was really brutal. And XU's a huge victory yesterday. And Kenvi now walking in, I don't know if Frost Force realizes that he's here, but I mean, okay, now he does. Now the mystery is completely gone. But it was a potential opportunity for Kenvi
and because
to be even more
Kenvi has
aggressive.
Jimian's priority, the first rotate over and over, it's really hard for Frost Force to just be able to fight Kenvi at this moment. Kenvi just making sure that Jimian is protected while he is shoving in this mid wave at the moment. Frost Force, there's no camps to go onto the top side of the map, and he's not going to contest Kenvi at the Scuttle Crab. So Frost Force just has to bolt over to the Krugs at the moment. Oh.
Sword.
That's rude. Uh-oh, Sword might be in a pickle here. Frost Force doesn't have knockup, but Sword has the Abyssal Dive, and he gets out safely.
Yeah, a bit of an interesting path coming through from Kenvi, right? Going for the red into bottom side clear and then going back towards the top side. It's a little bit time inefficient, but it gives him a lot of options to play with, right? You can start looking for the bottom side ganks. You can start looking to interact in the mid lane. We saw that he was able to take away a couple of the chicken nuggies from the opposing jungle, but ultimately, this early game is going pretty steady so far across the map for Cloud9, and that is a pretty good win considering a lot of the issues that we were seeing from them previously. Now, though, that they are going to be moving into the second part of the game, we have to ask some questions about how well they're going to be playing once they get past some of these early game deficiencies that we were typically used to saying. And 100 Thieves still have all the same tools with this Nidalee, with the Renekton, and the Rise that we were talking about previously. They can still go for it, and it is just as lethal as it was previously. So Copy and Lawrence, now that Lawrence is going to be pushed under his turret, he always has to be a little bit wary of a dive based on the fact that they haven't been able to create a whole lot of proactive vision to allow him to push out.
Frost Forest able to survive the first invade of Kenvi trying to steal away some chicken nuggets. So far, 100 Thieves haven't really sprung an explosive snowball for this Nidalee pick quite yet. And for the side of Cloud9 Academy, yes, you know, Jarvan does have some early skirmishing power and the ability to make some ganks happen, but in this particular game, I'm definitely more aligned with, you know what, just survive the early onslaught of things like Nidalee, Renekton, get through to the mid game. If they don't have a massive advantage, if you're keeping in line with them in terms of stats and overall gold, then you're going to be able to set up this Jinx for success, this Gwen on the side lane for success as well, and then you will have global power once Copy gets the chance to get out of lane and use these Destinies.
True, and Copy's been a fantastic Twisted Fate player historically. This is going to be a big test because we've been seeing a lot of Twisted Fate in Academy, not necessarily have a whole lot of opportunities for proactive play, but Copy, one of the best among them, and hopefully will have an opportunity to really showcase why this champion has been consistently banned up against Cloud9. He is now level 6, he's got the Unsealed Spellbook, has already used the teleport to get back to lane, but okay.
Uh-oh.
This is really dangerous.
Yeah. Empowered Root, long-range spear, but Frost Force is here to make sure that Kenvi does not go for the pounce into the takedown combo.
Even still, though, losing that much HP on this Twisted Fate makes it very dangerous for him to try and go for plays across the map because he's suddenly a liability and might end up going down. Now, I'm very surprised at how early this roam is coming out from Keetong. There is no Rift Herald spawn just quite yet. The timing makes sense in relation to his bottom lane, but felt like Cloud9 potentially going for a back reset a little bit earlier than they potentially needed to, and Sword doing a good job reacting to it as well. So, ultimately, the game, again, remaining very steady here, Rafa. There's no significant leads across the map in any lane at this point. And as you said, King, one of the major beneficiaries of this, but Wixie on the other side of the map, another one of these people who are very happy to take this game a little bit later because infinite scaling is always exciting.
Not exciting if you're Cloud9 Academy, because then
true.
Senna gets to start pelting you with damage a full screen away, and then the level of interactive ability is a little hard because
Look how fast he is.
he's got Swifty boots, and he definitely wants to be zooming. And I guess, you know, considering the amount of crowd control it is that you cannot reduce with tenacity, it's really just gold card and the root from Nautilus, but there's knockups and correct me if I'm wrong, those cannot be reduced by tenacity anymore. I know there's I know there's like a slight change that wanted to do that, but we're gonna see some movements here though. King and Keetong coming up the river. Rift Herald has spawned, and so because they're here before Wixie, who is going the farming Senna this game rather than the fasting Senna, Cloud9 Academy's full force is here for this play.
Yeah, this is good from Cloud9. They are being a bit more proactive than we're used to seeing, and they very easily secure themselves the Rift Herald here. And it doesn't cost them a whole lot. It might cost them about one play because Wixie is a little bit slow to actually impact this turret. Kenvi also taking away the Raptors. So overall, the gold value of this Rift Herald is going to be roughly even, but the big thing that we're going to have to pay attention to is whether or not they're going to get pounced on their way back to bottom lane.
I don't know about engaging on this, though. You have a full strength of numbers, and Keetong is just gone. Frost Force finally follows up, but okay, I take it all back. They set up for King and the resets. Jimmy is going to be able to get out with the Realm Warp. 1 for 2 trade, definitely worth for Cloud9.
We're seeing that even though they get pounced on in the middle of the play, it ends up going really well for them. And Honestly, I'm kind of surprised 100 Thieves are willing to commit to that as hard as they actually did. Yes, they got the kill from long range with Wixie being the beneficiary from across the map, but it's not necessarily going to be particularly exciting when you suddenly accelerate this Jinx so much. 2 kills going over to King's Jinx, and we know he's a monster.
Nothing also came out of the top lane play that Goms himself, and because Cloud9 Academy really haven't let 100 Thieves find that opportunity or window to get this massive snowball off, and this is a stable game for at least Cloud9 Academy in the first 10 minutes of the game.
Yeah, and I mean, the replay already happened at this point, but it was pretty straightforward, right? It just not respecting where people could be, and it definitely feels like 100 Thieves going for a little bit more of those limit tests. Like, can we actually go for this? We're unsure, so let's go for it and find out. And 100 Thieves, you know, they're down. I mean, I wanted to say they're down, but they're actually up in gold at this point. They are still doing a pretty decent job across the map, and the fact that they got the first blood does mean that there's not a whole lot extra that Cloud9 as a whole team are going to be able to benefit from. The only person who's really suddenly accelerated is King, who got those 2 kills and is now already got his mythic completed. I think our fastest is still something like 8 minutes when XU got his Gore Drinker.
Yep.
But this is probably a pretty close second coming up for King.
I definitely would have been contesting with last year's stats that we had for our solid Samsung Fast 5 for fastest mythic completion. But then yesterday, XU got Gore Drinker and 5 kills at 8 minutes in the game, which was pretty sick.
Pretty exciting.
Yeah, not exciting for Cloud9 Academy, as they were on the receiving end of the destruction of Lawrence's Lee, or XU's Lee Sin, I should say. But solid start so far. Gold card is going to land. Flag and drag for the combo. Jimmy doesn't have flash, and the Cataclysm should be his demise. Cloud9 Academy and finding a solid opportunity here.
Seeing more follow from the earlier play as well, right? Having no flash means that Jimmy very easy target. Gamsu comes
Flash.
here. Oh, he goes for the flash.
Flash onto the stun, and the spear is there. Wixie picking up another one. Thank you very much. But a dragon picked up by Cloud9 Academy means that the trade isn't completely in 100 Thieves' favor.
It just feels like they're just setting up plays for Wixie on the far side of the map. With something we hadn't really thought about is the fact that all the crowd control across the map just allows Wixie to shoot from all the way bottom lane. Doesn't even need to be there for the play. But now we are seeing the Reptile getting dropped bot lane. The only person who's going to get any money off of this is going to be Frost Forest, which is, you know, pretty good money to be going over to the jungle. But not giving it over to King and Ketong, a little bit surprising. And again, the gold lead remains so small in favor of Cloud9 that despite some of the early misplays from 100 Thieves, the question remains, are Cloud9 going to be able to convert this into something larger?
This will allow Frost Forest to get his Gore Drinker completion a little bit faster. Yep, it's now done. And this is pretty much the most important item for Jarvan jungle at this point. Once you get that, then you can continue building more damage if you feel like it, but more than likely, it's a gauge or some type of other hard defensive items. You are just there as a glorified frontliner. You're going to Cataclysm. You're going to survive as long as you can, and then cause as much disruption with just the overall Omnivamp, and then, of course, the active ability. But then that's it. That's your job as Jarvan. So it's not necessarily the most flashy. I definitely know that you and I have talked about when we've played Jarvan, it's like, man, we feel like we want to be able to do more, but sometimes that's all you need to do because we have to remember, Frost Force is not the primary carry.
Oh,
it's for King. And they're setting up for him. King is going to get another reset here, and then it should be a shutdown as well, since that's 2 kills from Wixie as well.
Yeah, I want to give a little bit of props to Copy there for standing inside the circle for Wixie the entire time, making sure they could always see him. And, I mean, this is the most successful TF we've seen so far, and might be looking for another kill, but Ketong.
He has flash. That's a flash away. Kenvi is going to follow up. Copy. I don't know if they really want to walk up and attempt to save him. They got a gold card down on the sword, Gray Shield, and the Realm Warp is going to be enough to keep him alive.
All right, Sword going in, very aggressive, is able to use the Gray Health to live, but it's going to be a big opportunity. King is still alive down here in the bottom lane, gets another plate for himself, and for the first time we're seeing a gold lead more than 1,000 gold this time around, and Cloud9 coming off to an early lead up against 100 Thieves is very, very exciting for them. But the thing that we praised 100 Thieves for last time was their ability to play with tempo, their ability to set the pace of the game later on. They haven't done that just quite yet, and it's allowing Copy to be proactive with this Twisted Fate. His first ultimate and his second ultimate, actually, have both been resulting in kills for Cloud9.
Yeah, in Academy, we've seen some Twisted Fate performances where all the destinies were defensive or retreats. So it's definitely a nice sight to see when the Twisted Fate is able to be that facilitator across the map. They're also going to be able to pick up the first turret of the game as well. That goes solely over to King. King is set up for success here, and as long as Cloud9 Academy, they don't force unnecessary plays, you know, you can go for easy picks and whatnot, but as long as you are scaling and getting through the next few minutes of the game, and you play around King, oh, this is in the bag.
King, one of the standout performers from Cloud9 Academy last time around, but this time Lawrence under attack from Sword. They're just going right through.
Yeah, 100 Thieves Academy definitely need to make some moves. Lawrence putting a lot of damage into Gamsu though. Need to work. Sword is going to use the Devour to keep his top laner alive, and it's cleanup kills for Kenvi here as Super Mega Death Rocket. Not going to hit anyone here. No redemption for the side of Cloud9 Academy, but these are the moves that 100 Thieves Academy need to make.
Not the cleanest move coming out from 100 Thieves, at least in terms of how they actually executed it, but the idea was so good it didn't matter. They were able to find the kill anyway without using a whole lot in return. Frost Forest, not quite able to stop Gamsu on his way back to base, but Sword is going to have to pay a little bit more time running around the map. And so, gold lead still remains about 1,000 between these two teams, with the mid lane turret going down for 100 Thieves. And as we take a look at the gold right now, we are noticing, just as we were expecting, the bottom lane is going to be where almost all of that gold lead currently resides. 1,000 gold in favor of King at the moment, and after this turret goes down, we're going to see it balloon once again.
It's netting a solid 1,300 gold for Cloud9 Academy. The only scaling part for 100 Thieves Academy that is kind of their insurance is what you talked about recently before, is Wixie on this setup, because it's kind of infinite. You can get longer range the more souls that you're able to pick up. But when you talk about the utility tools and the team fighting ability and the ways to control terrain as we're moving forward this second dragon, Cloud9 Academy looking definitely favored here.
Yeah, Cloud9 is getting contested here by 100 Thieves. This isn't an easy way for 100 Thieves to get in.
Frost Force secures the dragon. They might look to turn it on, but it's a nice embrace of the miss here from Wixie. Gamsu on still onto the front line, but Frost Force forcing Wixie to flash back. Doesn't get a chance to really participate and put any more damage, and Jimian not going to be able to get out with the Realm Orb this time. He gets interrupted, and that's a double for King.
That contest did not make a lot of sense coming out from 100 Thieves whatsoever. They didn't have the angles, they don't have the damage just quite yet, and we already see how strong Frost Forest is currently performing in the jungle so far. It's going to be getting the dragon and a couple of kills over to Cloud9 and absolutely nothing in return for 100 Thieves.
This is great to see from the Cloud9 Academy squad, because remember, it's a bunch of subs now that they finally had more experience, more reps under their belt in scrims with this squad than they did week one, but they're showing greater team coordination, they're showing a better understanding of their win conditions, and, you know, making things more simple to execute because of the champions they've picked as well. They're challenging 100 Thieves at points where 100 Thieves Academy normally would be able to just snowball and explode the game. They have not found that window at all in these past 18 minutes.
Yeah, and look at this. Ketong and Frost Forest now walking around, clearing 3 wards that Sword just placed down. Sword actually resetting for more wards immediately after. So definitely a bit of a rough spot for 100 Thieves. But Mark, I also want to, you know, allude a little bit more to the way that Five's mentality works, and when you're actually playing with a full team, how the game changes when you have one really fed dude. That dude, if they're playing well, starts saying, look, you're playing to me. I don't care what else, everything else is happening. I know normally we would try and dive to Senna. This game, you keep me alive, and we're going to win. I'm going to carry this game. And so I'm really looking at a veteran like King to be taking control of the comms at this point and saying, guys, just all you need to do is keep me alive, and they cannot do anything to me. So watch how Cloud9 typically would typically have Lawrence and Frost Forest being really aggressive divers. I'm expecting them to play a little bit more of almost a tank role where they are going to be standing in front just to make sure that nobody can ever touch their AD carry.
And 100 Thieves Academy have to find a way to get a successful flank off or find King where he is exposed and no one is necessarily protecting him, because when you think about the peeling tools that Cloud9 Academy have, it's not necessarily a lot if they're already using it to be on the engage necessary. But 100 Thieves Academy, the way that they've approached these two big fights where King has gotten resets off, they're the ones that start off the fight onto another character, and then King comes in, and there's no more resources from the side of 100 Thieves Academy to lock him down, so he gets to fire rockets for free, he gets to clean up, he pulls out the janitor broom. And so now 100 Thieves Academy start to have to re-evaluate these next few fights that are be coming up.
I also want to kind of take an opportunity to look at, the difference in the way that Jimian is currently playing this Rise versus, what a Twisted Fate would actually bring to the team, right? And we know Jimian is a pretty strong Twisted Fate player historically. He was one of the people who was playing it last year when it basically was not popular at all. But something that we would see Jimian do pretty consistently was, if there is somebody who is really fed on the other team, he would use his ultimate to just put himself in range so that he could gold card that one person, and that 2-second stun was oftentimes worth more than any damage he could do to the front line, just because it means that somebody like King or Wixie is not going to be auto-attacking for those 2 seconds. And without that available to him, Jimian's job is a lot harder, and we're seeing anyway. I need to have the DPS to take him down.
Yeah. If he's able to find a flank with the Unleashed teleports, and depending on where 100 Thieves set up ward placements for those teleport plays, then maybe you can find an angle onto King and just blow him up with a solid Rise combo. Because that's pretty much either Jimian or Gamsu, their duty to find this Jinx, take her out of the fight, and then allow Wixie to be the one that is cleaning up the remainder of the members of Cloud9 Academy. Whereas they have 2 dragons to their name, 2 dragons away from Soul Point, which is going to be Mountain. And now they might be looking for a play as this Realm Warp comes in.
Oh, it's mid.
Wait. Uh-oh.
Huh.
Well, this is not good at all.
This is
and
disaster.
Compy has found Wixie alongside Frost Force. They locked out Wixie. This is absolute disaster for 100 Thieves Academy, but a hell of a sight to see if you're a Cloud9 fan.
Wow, that was... Didn't get to see the whole thought process going through there. I'm really curious what 100 Thieves were expecting from that, but again, not having Twisted Fate, they don't get to see where everybody is when they go for these portals, and this time, 100 Thieves are getting bitten in the butt. And at the same time, Lawrence going to the opposite side of the map. They're going to be rewarding themselves with everything, not just for kills. It's going to be another dragon, a mountain dragon, and also the Baron buff all at once. Everything collapsing across the map for 100 Thieves. And I'd said it was not going to be a particularly close matchup at the beginning of the day. I'm excited that we're getting proven wrong from this relatively fresh squad of Cloud. And they get a turret too? Mark, where does it stop?
It's not stopping anytime soon. I'm going to let you know right now. The Cloud9 Academy train, 7,000 gold ahead as well. You take a look at the individual gold stats. That's 3,000, 4,000 gold in the lead for King, just against Wixie as well. And this just goes to show that Cloud9 Academy, very, very aware of their win con. They're very understanding of who the King is. And it is no pun intended, right? He is in control. You play around him, and you will win this chess game.
Yeah. So, now that we're taking a look at it, a lot of what we have to take a look at is remembering that most of the plays that have happened in this game, not all of them, to Cloud9's credit, they did make some good plays across the map, but a lot of them have been 100 Thieves going for things and Cloud9 punishing. And so even though it's not going well for 100 Thieves at the moment, I still want to give them a lot of respect for going for these kind of things. This is not a typical kind of roster or typical kind of draft that we would see from this 100 Thieves. And that's what we were saying. We also wanted to see. We want to see this team go for things in order to get more comfortable. This is supposed to be a learning environment. And, even though this is not going their way, they are learning exactly how to play this kind of style, so it's going to look even better next time they bring it out.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing the duality of a composition like that be at both ends. This is kind of the unfortunate side of things when things don't explode your way in the early game, because yesterday when they pulled it out against TSM Academy and they found that early skirmish on the top side of the river, Kenvi had a field day and he could just run the show. But this time around, this is now kind of the punishment of what happens when the Nidalee doesn't get off the ground. You're struggling to really find a way to impact the later stages of the game, whereas something like a Jarvan, you always have the engaged tools available to you to set up for your backline to clean up the rest.
And as we watch more and more structures crumbling here for 100 Thieves, it's going to be very difficult for them to really bring this game back, as another turret likely going to be going down here.
Oh no. Sword even through the gray shield and the health bars, it's not enough. Frost Force gets the dunk down, slam him. Cataclysm is going to walk out the rest of the members of 100 Thieves Academy for being able to even engage, and King just gets to run away with a bunch of dead bodies on the ground now. Rockets exploding everyone in Cloud9 Academy. Probably not expected win from them, to be honest, but man, hell of a job from them being able to turn up against one of the better Academy teams in the split right now.
Yeah, great upset win coming through from Cloud9. You got to feel really good about that. You saw a lot of aggressive plays being made by 100 Thieves, and Cloud9 were always ready to turn it on its head. I don't really have a whole lot more to say than that. They took the advantages that were gifted to them, and they played through it very, very cleanly. I mean, I guess if I had to go back and look at a couple spots, like spot one, when 100 Thieves over-aggressed and ended up getting double dunked by Frost Force, giving 2 kills over to King. And then after that, there was a dragon contest that 100 Thieves went for a little bit earlier than they potentially needed to. And once Cloud9 had these advantages, they were just like, okay, I guess we just win now. And it was very, very clean. They took everything basically in one fell swoop, and that's what I really like to see, is they take the advantage and just run with it super, super immediately.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
When we evaluate, the drafts at the beginning of the game, I think it's a little bit, our responsibility to remind everyone at home is like, okay, these drafts indicating that Cloud9, because they went for a very standard style of composition, they are playing to just make sure that the comfort compositions that they run are being executed correctly, and they're having clean communication and understanding of their macro and objective priorities as well. Whereas for 100 Thieves Academy, they're running a harder to execute composition, right? So for them, it's just them trying to get more reps in on playing around a Nidalee composition, because that's really what it is. Empowering Kenvi, giving him tools that sets up for those long-range spears to connect and get those kills snowballing so that he can run the rest of the game. Yesterday, it worked against TSM Academy. Today, it didn't get the execution necessary to really pop off again. So I'm now curious to see if 100 Thieves Academy are going to try to get another rep of that composition in, or if they're going to try to go something that is a little easier to execute.
Yeah, it's the difference of the first half, second half of these 2-game series, right? You get to see the first thing that you want to try. Does it work? Maybe. Are you willing to run it back and just try it again and get more reps, as you said? Maybe. There's a lot of things you can do. The goal is not always winning. It's always learning.
Well, for us, we're going to be sending it to break. When we come back, we're going to be joined again by our lovely French host, Mazel, as he's definitely got something spicy in for us in store. And we'll also be transitioning into the second game of 100 Thieves Academy and Cloud9 Academy.